With 40 years of films and over 100 kills to his name, Michael Myers, first credited as The Shape, is one of the most iconic slasher film killers of all time. He's the feature of the Halloween franchise and has been in a few great movies and a few not so great movies. And with the release of Halloween 2018, now is the perfect time to take a look back at the cinematic history of Michael Myers. But first, make sure to subscribe to GameSpot Universe for more deep dives on film history, like our videos on The Predator or on the history of Spider-Man in film. As Michael Myers' history shifts film by film and director by director, I'm going to break this up into segments based on their continuity. So let's start where it all began, and the one film that is true to just about every Michael Myers timeline, John Carpenter's Halloween. Here we start with a young Michael Myers witnessing his older sister, who's supposed to babysit him on Halloween night, instead taking the chance to have sex with her boyfriend and completely ignoring him. This seems to set him off, and the camera acts as a first-person guide while we follow him taking out a kitchen knife, putting on a clown mask, and murdering his sister. While it's unclear how exactly his parents react to the situation, Michael's put in Warren County's Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where psychologist Dr. Sam Loomis has deemed he should stay forever until he dies, as Loomis believes Michael to be pure evil. This characterization of Michael Myers actually came from an event from John Carpenter's past. John Carpenter states on the Halloween documentary, A Cut Above the Rest,
"When I was in college, I had a class, psychology or something, and we visited a mental institution, and this was in Kentucky. And I visited the most serious mentally ill patients. Then there was this kid, I must have been 12 or 13, and he literally had this look that I gave the lines to Donald Pleasance to say,
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. It
was unsettling to me. And it was like the creepiest thing I'd ever seen, just because as a stranger, it was completely insane.
15 years later, Michael Myers escapes from his imprisonment and returns to his hometown, the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, which was named after Halloween co-screenwriter and producer Deborah Hill's hometown, Haddonfield, New Jersey. Dr. Loomis finds Michael's outfit from the sanitarium littered alongside a murdered and naked mechanic's car, which it's implied this is how Michael received his clothing. Art director Tommy Lee Wallace stated he purposely chose a jumpsuit to make it as bland as possible and help make Michael Myers' mask stick out. In a later conversation between Annie Brackett and her father, Sheriff Leigh Brackett, it's revealed,
"What happened?"
Oh, somebody broke into the hardware store, probably kids.
You blame everything on kids.
Well, now all they took was some Halloween mask, rope, and a couple of knives.
Indicating this is how Michael obtained his now iconic mask. Funny enough, this creepy and horrifying looking mask is actually a mask of William Shatner. I'm not saying this implies anything about Kirk, but I'm pretty sure a mask of Jean-Luc Picard could never look this creepy. On a shoestring budget, Tommy Lee Wallace set about the task of creating a mask for Michael Myers to wear.
It was originally written the way you see it. In other words, it's a pale mask with human features, almost featureless. I don't know why I wrote that down, why Deborah and I decided on that. Maybe it was because of an old movie called Eyes Without a Face. It's a French film, Franju made it, and this girl had a burned face, so she wore this face mask that was real creepy because it was featureless and immobile except for her eyes.
There were two masks they tried out for the adult Michael Myers. The first of these was an Emmett Kelly mask, and the second, the now iconic William Shatner mask. Wallace had purchased this at a costume shop, ripped off the sideburns, cut the eye holes larger, and spray painted the mask white.
He came out wearing that thing, and I'm telling you, as soon as he walked out the door, that is the scariest. Who knew? I mean, it was magic. We knew we were onto something now because it was so damn scary walking in. You didn't even have to have a story. It was just, no!
Also, this has been confirmed by Shatner himself, who also went trick-or-treating in a Michael Myers mask, which is pretty amazing.
Then I bought one and took the three of you trick-or-treating and put on my own mask. Trick or treat.
But it worked.
It worked.
Michael Myers, who has returned to his childhood home, which local kids now believe is haunted, notices Laurie Strode come up to the house and begins following her now as the Shape. John Carpenter's friend from USC, Nick Castle, was the first person to play the role of the Shape just by happenstance. Castle, who was an aspiring director at the time, wanted to hang around the set as he lived nearby. John Carpenter said that was cool and put him to work as the killer, paying him $25 a day. It's at this point Michael Myers begins stalking Laurie and her friends, ultimately leading to him killing all of her friends and attempting to kill Laurie before being foiled by both her and ultimately Dr. Loomis. In one particular final struggle, his face is briefly revealed and shown to be a normal-looking young man.
John and Deborah wanted a certain look for the person that was going to eventually be Michael Myers when the mask came off. They didn't want someone really handsome like me. So they said they wanted someone that looked more angelic, kind of against type. But I'll let the audience decide if they actually made a good casting decision there. I think I would have been much better, frankly.
Despite being stabbed and shot multiple times, Michael Myers disappears as he appears to be invincible. Throughout this movie and its sequels, Michael is regularly referred to as
the Boogie Man, the Boogie Man, the Boogie Man. The Boogie Man.
The Boogie Man has no specific story or appearance and is usually just a word used to describe a scary thing that terrorizes someone. Usually it's used as a story to scare kids out of doing something that's a bad habit. You know, like, I don't know, starting your car. There's a possible narrative in the first film of Michael Myers killing babysitters, as that's who he first killed as a child, especially as the original title for the film was The Babysit Murders. But from sound bites of various John Carpenter interviews, it sounds like that wasn't really Michael Myers' intention in the first film, just the net result. With the first Halloween complete and a breakout hit, sequels would inevitably come, and this is where the films start to heavily diverge. So let's first tackle the numbered sequels to Halloween with Halloween 2. Halloween 2 takes place later on the same night Michael Myers attacked. However, a new revelation is added this time around, that being, Laurie Strode is now Michael Myers' sister and was adopted by the Strode family. His motivation is now specifically to seek out and kill his sister to essentially finish up the job he first started as a child. While this has been the case for all the future Halloween films so far, this has been a contested issue amongst fans, and it's my personal opinion this makes him less frightening. However, this is specifically worth noting as Halloween 2018 will be the first Halloween to retcon this plot element.
She was almost murdered.
Wasn't it her brother who murdered all those babysitters?
No, it was not her brother. That's something that people made up.
But for the rest of these films, you can consider it canon that Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister. This time around, Michael follows Laurie to a hospital she's being kept at to treat her injuries. He murders everyone in the hospital other than her, and once again Dr. Loomis comes to save the day, this time committing suicide to blow up both himself and Michael in a giant fiery explosion. The movie ends with Michael burning to death. And finally, the horror that is Michael Myers is dead. Until Halloween 3!
The Immortal Classic, followed by the big giveaway at 9, brought to you by...
Come on.
Okay, he didn't show up in Halloween 3. But because Halloween 3 performed so poorly, Michael Myers was brought back for Halloween 4. In Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, both Michael and Dr. Loomis have somehow survived the explosion they were both in. I get the Michael Myers part, because he's basically a zombie god at this point, but Loomis... This time around, Michael Myers escapes after 10 years of being a vegetable from the explosion during a transfer to a new sanitarium. Laurie has died in a car accident, however, she's survived by her now adopted 7-year-old daughter, Jamie Lloyd. And for those of you keeping score at home, that means Laurie Strode had her daughter just 3 years after the events of Halloween. Jamie seems to have a strange link with Michael, as she's been having nightmares about him. Meanwhile, Myers discovers her existence and returns once again to Haddonfield, Illinois in order to kill her and massacre a whole score of people along the way. Dr. Loomis discovers this and once again sets out to stop him. It also becomes apparent that Michael Myers now has the ability to teleport, as demonstrated by the scene where Dr. Loomis and Jamie are escaping from town by car with a number of the residents who have been hunting Michael. While Michael is nowhere to be seen underneath the car, or anywhere really, he suddenly appears to murder the lynch mob. Once again, Michael is seemingly killed, this time by a full firing squad who shoot him down. This is further cemented when, in a twist, Jamie kills her adoptive mother wearing a mask just like Michael. It seems the evil hasn't stopped, but has instead been passed on to her. But if you didn't like that, don't worry, because it's wiped from canon in Halloween 5 and 6. These films feature Michael returning once again to finish the job, and of course murder dozens of people along the way. However, a new element is introduced that's unique to these films, that being Michael's thorn mark and the controversial Man in Black. This actually harkens back to a 1979 Halloween novel written by Curtis Richards. In this novel, based on the original film, Curtis Richards examines and creates a deeper backstory for Michael Myers. Specifically of note, he references the Festival of Samhain, which would become a major factor in the backstory of Michael Myers for Halloween 5 and 6. Myers now has a thorn mark, which, well, I'll let young Paul Rudd explain it.
I actually brought a clip.
No! Bad Paul Rudd! I'm talking about from Halloween!
They were symbols, carved out of stone or pieces of wood, used in pagan rituals to portend future events and invoke magic. Among the ancient Druids, thorn represented a demon that spread sickness, brought death to hundreds of thousands of people. According to Celtic legend, one child from each tribe was chosen to be inflicted with the curse of thorn, to offer the blood sacrifices of its next of kin on the night of Samhain.
Halloween.
The sacrifice of one family meant sparing the lives of an entire tribe.
So there you go, it's ancient pagan magic. The Man in Black turns out to be one of Dr. Loomis's contemporaries, Dr. Terrence Wynn, who wants to harness Michael Myers' evil because it's powerful, and it's powerful. Look, at some point you just have to accept it. He leads the Cult of the Thorn, and after Michael Myers is captured at the end of Halloween 5, it's Dr. Wynn who frees him from imprisonment, trying to control Michael from behind the scenes, which goes about as well as you would expect it to. Wrapping up the original numbered series of Halloween. Okay, so everything I just talked about after Halloween 2, well, you can completely wipe that from your memory because we're moving on to Halloween H2O. This time around, Laurie Strode is still alive, but has faked her death and changed her name to Carrie Tate in order to escape from Michael in the off chance he has come back to life since the events of Halloween 2. Which, as it turns out, he has. Michael Myers has gone completely missing since the events of Halloween 2, but 20 years after his events, he's returned to find Laurie. He first stalks the now-deceased Dr. Loomis, where he finds info on her whereabouts and changed name, and of course has a little fun along the way.
Jimmy!
Michael stalks Laurie all the way to California, where she's now living with her son, John. Michael, of course, finds them and murders just about everyone along the way as he attempts to get Laurie. She finally does what should have been done all this time, and decapitates him. I've been thinking, if you have an undead zombie monster chasing after you, why not cut off his arms? That way when he inevitably comes back to life, at least he won't be able to pick anything up. And I'll tell you why, because in the follow-up to H2O, Halloween Resurrection, it doesn't matter because Michael will somehow always foil your plans. In Resurrection, we learn Michael somehow foresaw all of this, switched places with the paramedic examining him, and the person whose head Laurie chopped off was actually the not quite dead yet paramedic. So Michael comes once again to attack a shell-shocked Laurie Strode, and finally succeeds. Well, that was unexpected. So, while you'd expect him to stalk his nephew John, the kid is nowhere to be seen in this film, and he instead goes home to just chill and eat rats. That is, until Dangertainment! Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks have created a new internet show featuring dumb teenagers exploring a haunted house for clues about a serial killer. And the house they've chosen for their first episode? The residence of Michael Myers, of course. While they set up fake props to create a fake backstory as to why Myers became evil, Little do they know, Michael Myers is actually there, creating the greatest moment in all of Halloween history. The moment Busta Rhymes, who's randomly obsessed with Kung Fu, utilizes his knowledge to, well, I'll just show you.
Me? Huh?
Cinematic history, my friends. In the end, Busta Rhymes electrocutes Michael Myers, who's finally dead once and for all. With that, we come to our final timeline, the zombie timeline. And for this, you can come in with a clean slate, as Rob Zombie has remade the first film completely. In the Rob Zombie remake, Michael Myers now grows up around a horribly abusive family whose mother's a stripper, her boyfriend verbally abusive and potentially physically violent, and whose older sister is selfish and rude. All of this, including bullying at school, leads to him exhibiting depressing and violent tendencies such as killing animals. Further bullying at school, and Dr. Loomis arriving who wants to examine Michael and try to help him, leads to him finally snapping. He murders one of his bullies on his way home, but hasn't fully snapped until the big moment. He wants to go out for Halloween to get Halloween candy, but his sister won't take him because she wants to have sex with her boyfriend. So, because he can't go trick-or-treating, he snaps and murders his father, sister, and brother in ultra-violent ways, as this is a Rob Zombie film. The only person he spares is his baby sister, Angel Myers. After Michael snaps, he's brought to a sanitarium and put under the care of Dr. Loomis.
I'm gonna get out of here! Just let me out! I don't want to be here anymore.
I know, it's okay.
I just want to go home.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
I want to just go home.
I'm afraid you can't go home.
Why?
Because you've done terrible things.
Michael slowly becomes more and more withdrawn, likely due to the conditions around him, and becoming more and more obsessed with masks, which he had always donned back home, which, as he states,
I like the mask because it hides my face.
I don't like you to hide your face. Take it off.
It hides my ugliness.
Eventually, Michael's mother commits suicide, and Michael is left with nobody except for Dr. Loomis, who eventually decides to close the case and move on. Michael is left to his masks until the worst sanitarium employees in history decide to gang rape a girl right in front of him and in his room, because I'm seriously at a loss as to the logic in this. This finally sets Michael off to the point where he murders everybody and escapes the sanitarium. He returns to his childhood home, where he decides to find his sister, who has now been adopted as Laurie Strode. In a fun bit of trivia, this time around, Laurie's friend Annie Brackett is played by Danielle Harris, who had previously played Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5. Like the first movie, Michael Myers goes on a murder spree as he attempts to get at Laurie, although this time it's unclear if his intention is to murder her. He tries to show her a picture in order to show her that she's his sister, but she can't understand what he's attempting to show her, and therefore uses the opportunity to stab him. Dr. Loomis tries to help out, but in the end, it's Laurie who shoots Michael and stops him. I also want to point out that every male in this film looks like an alternate version of Rob Zombie, as he doesn't seem to understand not having long hair is a fashion option. This all leads into Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. After a dream sequence paying homage to the original Halloween 2, we find this film actually takes place a couple years after the first Rob Zombie Halloween. We find out Michael Myers has escaped from an ambulance filled with the worst EMTs in the world.
I heard a story about a couple of meat wagon boys f***ing corpses over in Essex. I ain't never had the urge till tonight.
2 years later, Michael is once again searching for Laurie/Angel, but now it's specifically to kill her. We see multiple visions he has had of his dead mother telling him to reunite their family, and an image of a white horse, which we're told symbolizes, quote, a link to instinct, purity, and the drive of the physical body to release powerful and emotional forces, like rage with ensuing chaos and destruction. Along the way, Michael kills even more people who look like Rob Zombie, as he finally reaches Laurie, who he now seems to have a psychic connection with. Laurie receives the same visions Michael is having, and in the end, Michael drops his knife, allowing her to take it and murder him. She leaves the spot of his murder wearing his mask, and now seeming to have picked up the same evil and psychological issues Michael has, as we leave with her being locked up in a sanitarium. She has a vision of a white horse, puts on a demented smile, and presumably is about to go on a murder rampage similar to Michael's. And thus wraps up the film history of Michael Myers. Personally, I'm excited the upcoming Halloween film seems to be returning to the original idea of Michael Myers being a psychotic killer with random victims and no true goal, as I find that to be far more terrifying. But I'd love to know what you think. Are you looking forward to the new film, and what are your favorite Halloween films ranked from best to worst? Let us know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.